Now, unlike all the other factors and problems that I've identified, um, this one is the most technical. This is the one that anybody really can see. It's not that hard to see. Time and manpower regarding logistics facilities. So, as I said before, with 1.0, you can't play the game like it was before 1.0. Yeah, Regiment can't do everything anymore. You can try, but you're gonna get to the problem and the point where we are now, where everyone's leaving the game. With the Recon support company, we actually tried to have one facility. That was the whole point in our strategy, was that we were going to have one facility, but it was going to be small, it was going to be compact, and it was going to be in such a way that we had already identified what were the list of vehicles and equipment that we were going to use in our order of battle, which meant that all our logistics and all our facility work was geared towards that set of equipment and vehicles. Nothing more and nothing less. Now, that was it. The math was done so that we knew how much of each kind of resource we needed. And then we made the decision, is this something that we can afford to do in terms of time and manpower? Will this burn us out? And we said, no, that will be okay. And we did it. And so far, we're 2 weeks into the war on Charlie right now. And it's just me and my facility officer. We're the ones that basically built the whole thing and have kept it running for the most part for in terms of garrison supplies. That's the killer aspect of facilities most of the time. And what we found is that it is actually possible to just make a very small facility that is geared towards your regiment's mission. In our case, the Recon Support Company. If you want to have a look at the order of battle, you have to watch my previous video. But it is possible to do that, and it's possible to run such a facility with just two guys without burning each other out, without having to put in 7 hours a day kind of work to run the facility. I mean, if we were talking like on a daily basis, we don't even need to spend an hour's time to keep the facility running for the most part now. It's it's really cost effective. The problem that we ran into that we didn't take into account was that if the regiment is smaller than 10 people, you won't actually get your money's worth out of the facility. That's what we found the hard way now. Um, Partly because even if you had the capability of producing these vehicles, if you don't have anybody to use them, there's no point. So, from real life experience that we've learned from the game now, unless you have at least 10 minimum active members in your regiment, don't touch a facility because there's really not much point. The amount of time, effort, manpower, resources put into the facility, you don't get the worth out of it when you're trying to go on the front line and affect the the battle basically. Yeah, that's just how it is really, that we found out. So economizing, that was the big thing that we were looking for. It was pure efficiency. That was all we were concerned with, and we were calculating it not in terms of just raw resources, but time and manpower. So now we come to the last slide here. I didn't put much, partly because I actually haven't been able to exercise command and control because the regiment has been so small. Uh, Everything has been tactical for the most part. Nothing strategic has occurred. One day, hopefully, it can come about. But yeah, I don't have much to say on this. But to double back, actually, specialization, that's the thing I usually try to push now. And not a lot of people agree with it. It's been looked down upon. Just for theoretical uh, exercise, if anybody does want to specialize and try to take this, you have all the different branches that I've identified. You have here in this case the partisan or the reconnaissance role. You have the logistics role, which, funnily enough, there are a lot of regiments that just do pure logistics, and they do it for public, and they also contract work out to certain regiments. That at least that's how it is on Charlie. I'm not too sure how it is on Baker. I can't recall from my time there if there was a dedicated. There were the train guys that I would consider to be pure logi. So yes, there is. So you have the partisan or the reconnaissance folks, you have the logistics folks, then you have the other three branches, which is the one where nobody specializes in. Everyone tries to do all three plus logistics. That's the infantry, the armor, and the artillery. Now, an interesting conversation came up a couple of days ago where someone asked, would there be anybody who would want to specialize in an infantry regiment? And we laughed it off and said no. Uh, but just as I was trying to go to sleep that night, I realized something that's actually not true. If we try to take the approach here that I've taken with my regiment, where we're trying to specialize, economize, and try to approach the game with just a little bit more depth, the second most easiest type of regiment to run in such a strategy would actually be an infantry regiment. Partly because, in terms of equipment, an infantry regiment, if you have enough people to actually operate, we're talking like 15 to 25 active members at least. Um, the logistics involved actually isn't going to be that difficult because you're only working with infantry equipment for the most part. Unlike in recon support here, or an armor or artillery unit, or even the logistics in which they have trains, for the recon armor and artillery, they need to work with crates of equipment, right? You need multiple flatbeds, multiple shipping iron ships to put in multiple shipping container, well, not shipping containers, but crates of vehicles and artillery pieces and whatnot. It's just more heavy equipment requires heavier logistics, basically. But in an infantry regiment, you wouldn't technically need that because all your stuff would come in crates that you can put in shipping containers or trucks. And it wouldn't be that boring because when we were having the conversation, we realized that in an infantry regiment, if you took the time to actually try to plan it out, and if you actually managed to get all your guys to the front line to operate, you have a lot of interesting problems. Well, I say problems, a lot of interesting set of, yeah, we'll just go with problems in this case, set of problems that you have to deal with that actually, as I think about it, seems kind of fun. You'd have to figure out, as the regiment commander, how to organize your rifle squads. You'd have to figure out how you want to best employ heavy weaponry. So that means maybe having heavy weapons teams like machine guns, all the tripod weapons for the most part, rocket launchers, infantry support guns, grenade launchers. You have to figure out how you want to run your mortar sections. That right there opens up a whole new set of tactics. If you figure out how to effectively use mortar support, you get access to flares. That right there opens up another set of tactics. Gives you the opportunity to figure out how you want to conduct nighttime operations for the most part. I haven't seen that developed by anybody so far. Then you have the question of whether you want to be motorized or mechanized. If it's motorized, it's simple jeeps, trucks, and whatnot. Those are very easy set of vehicles to mass produce and manufacture. If you try to take the mechanized route, then you've got a question of half tracks, which on the colonial side here, half tracks are pretty easy to make, and you don't need a facility to make them. You have the upgraded versions, but then again, that's another like strategic question in terms of infantry regiment, how you want to do that. And then you have the other problem of figuring out heavy anti-tank when you go into the late war. Do you just want to depend on push AT guns, or do you want to try to approach it like in Second World War, the Americans? You have dedicated tank destroyer platoons, in which case then that opens up another logistical hellhole. You figure out how to produce the tanks, upgrade the tanks and whatnot. But those are all decisions that need to be made, and those are all problems that need to be kind of addressed and solved. And if you're running an infantry regiment like that, actually, you ask me, sounds like a lot of fun. But once again, just keep in mind, trying to follow such a specialization strategy like this, you run into this drawback of limited scope of operations. There are certain things you're not going to be able to do when you do get into the combat, right? If you're trying to lay siege to a concrete bunker base, if you don't have heavy artillery, it's going to be a waste of time. If you're trying to execute maneuver operations without any dedicated armor support, you're going to run into some problems there as well. Uh, your logistics, for the most part, I mean, as we said at the beginning, you can't. It's probably the second easiest kind of regiment to run besides a recon or partisan regiment. You probably don't need really dedicated trained logistics to help you out there. But yeah, for the most part, specialization, it's something that I hope people try to consider. But yeah, this is just the overall kind of overview of how my regiment operates and the approach that I'm taking and all the results that I found on my journey so far, all my experience. Still going to be working on it. So, yeah, thanks for watching my video.